Okay, 5-minute notice. We're going to start the meeting in 5 minutes, everybody.
I had enjoyed going to Ed Mitchell's house for Graceland. That's the other thing Mitchell's house.
You thought that was my
He was very disappointed. Yeah, he was. Yeah. I've been saying it about 30 times. I love it.
So 31 times for you count 2 years ago.
That's right. Oh yeah, yeah. That ain't gonna be him. He could be Santa Claus.
Otherwise, you might as well sit down.
What? Okay, I'll believe it when I get here.
Last time I go there, sure, gotta get you by rates.
Pick like 14, didn't you? Pick 14, man, you see it.
Anyway, he'll get those.
Good luck with that. Keep your head down.
Hey, man.
Rather good to see you, man.
Now she's off. She took a week off already, didn't she?
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, that's exactly right. We'll be ready for it. We'll keep you fed with plenty of information.
How you doing? Look at that way. That's like that picture.
started and close the doors back there. My name's Ray Morgan. Wayne and Katie are on vacation, so I'll be leading the meeting today. And let's start with our pledge of allegiance. Everybody stand. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now a prayer.
Almighty God, our rock and our salvation, we beg you to pour out your Holy Spirit upon our fractured nation. Heal the divisions that separate us and remove all obstacles to authentic unity. May you guide this great country of ours and lead our citizens to embrace one another as neighbors and fellow countrymen, created in your own image and likeness. Give us a fresh opportunity for renewal and true solidarity for the common good of our homeland. May we return to our true identity as a people of faith and charity. Help us to always remain one nation under you, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. 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 Hey, thanks. Everybody have a seat. Can I get you to turn down that volume in the next room there for the speaker overhead? Appreciate it. Okay, I want to first of all welcome any new visitors today. Anybody new with us today? Okay, one, couple. All right, great. Well, welcome.
Isabel, this is her first time here.
Good. Isabel, welcome. Also want to recognize Jack and Vivian. This is their 63rd wedding anniversary today. The most exciting thing they could think of was to come to the tea party. I want to recognize some of our distinguished visitors. We have Mayor Ed Mitchell here. And Lenore City Mayor Tony Atkins was here earlier and he had to leave. But Jennifer Wampler, the Vice Mayor of Lenore City. And I will introduce our guest speakers a little bit later on and their people. So now I just want to open it up just briefly. Any announcements from the audience? I think Susan had a little something she wanted to talk about.
I was really glad to come tonight because two speakers, Tim and Lowell, are politicians I respect, and I was happy to help them with their elections. 2019 is going to be much worse than it was before the Tea Party movement started. Because 8 years, Obama did a lot of damage to our country. And since he left, the damage continues because there's a lot of mini Obamas elected to office. We're losing our country. There's a civil war. We're losing the Civil War. If we don't act, our country will be gone. We cannot look at D.C. or Nashville to lead us out of what we're in right now. We need a new movement, one bigger than the Tea Party. I propose that there be a new Patriots movement, a grassroots, innovative, coordinated action. So we start getting some publicity again, messages out. We can do things to combat what is funded by bad Democrats. You know, they don't have taxpayers' best interest in mind. And I think that Tennessee is the place to start it because Tennessee has the most to lose. We're still conservative, we're still Christian, but they want Tennessee more than they want anything else. So I'm asking for people that are interested in actually doing something, not just talking, not just being on social media. So please get in touch with me, and I'll be working with our Living Red in Tennessee Teleco Village group, and also hopefully coordinating with CCP. Thank you.
Where's your box of yellow vest?
Yeah, I love red.
Any other announcements in the audience? All right, this time Wayne Snell has written a letter to the North City government and the Lowell County government to make a request. And so I'd like to have John read his letter.
Thank you, Ray. Appreciate it. Hello. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, everybody. Actually had me come up here to do this one. I ain't from Lowell County. Right? But anyway. Let's try and do this. Okay, let's see. Now, this is a letter that Wayne did write. Obviously, everybody knows that Wayne and Katie are in a great place called Cancun, Mexico. That's all. Enjoying themselves while we're here fighting the political issues of the country. Right, Ed? Anyway, the subject of the letter is support of expanded coverage of county and school board workshop meetings, obviously in Lowell County. And this is a letter that Wayne written to the members, and the letter states, cross-county Patriot Tea Parties, and it says here over 600 members. My God, that's a lot of members since we first started a long time ago, right? Some of you that just can remember when we first started it. Teresa, John, God. Anyway, Wayne stated that the mission is to educate the public as to what is going on politically in our state and local areas. We are requesting the Loudoun County Community TV channel to expand coverage to include workshop meetings, because many of these meetings are held during appropriate times and locations for the public to attend. Wayne further went on to say that the public has a right to know what is going on by placing videos on tape and on YouTube and the community channels. Wayne said that this will provide more public access and review of what goes on in all government meetings. What he is requesting, Wayne went on to request certain items. One is all workshop meetings of the county commission and school board meetings be video recorded, because they are the largest budget countywide that affects all taxpayer pocketbooks. And probably that is in most counties, right, Mr. Mitchell? Absolutely. Second, Wayne goes on to request, once you agree to record workshop, we would request your consideration to adding Loudoun County and Lenore City workshop meetings as well. Number 3, request that the LCC TV place all meetings on YouTube and on the community channel, so public meetings are accessible on the internet to the entire community, the entire public. Wayne goes on by closing, saying that we are sure the county commissioners and the Board of Education members want to keep their constituents informed, because a lot of important information is exchanged at workshop meetings that is not brought to light in the board meetings, and where taxpayers cannot attend. And that's true in so many cases. There's a further to say that again, every little discussion occurs at monthly business meetings where items are voted on, thus taxpayers will not have the background information for many commissioners of the Board of Education voters. And then in closing, it says Charter Spectrum collects an estimate of over $200,000 in cable TV fees from Lenore City and Loudoun County. And Loudoun County has always allocated funds for the LCC TV while steadily decreasing funding. Current FY 18-19 budget is $6,100,000.
No, 61.
$6,100, I'm sorry. Probably is 6 million, it's 6,100. Number one on nonprofits. As Wayne says, I know the funds are tight, but keeping constituents informed should be the highest priority. County Patriots Tea Party respectfully requests that the county commission and school board workshop meetings be recorded and televised on YouTube for everyone to see. We have an engaging community and many are homebound, and the service will be of great benefit to our seniors. Wayne says thank you, Wayne Schnell. And with that, I'm sorry about the $6,100,000. Anyway, thank you.
Thanks, John.
You got it.
And if anybody has any comments for Wayne's letter, just get in touch with Wayne, want to add something or whatever on that. So, thanks. Okay, I'm going to do my Constitution section. For those of you who are new, every meeting I like to take a specific point in the Constitution and just discuss it. Today is going to be a little bit different, but let me just start out by saying happy holidays, huh? You know, how many times have you heard happy holidays?
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, exactly. That term really annoys me, but my question is, what holidays are they talking about?
Right.
Are they talking about Hanukkah? Yeah. Or are they talking about Kwanzaa? You know, Kwanzaa was actually just made up in the 1960s. It was a totally made up holiday. But if you look at federal regulations, you will see that the official holiday is Christmas. Okay? So why then do they say happy holidays? Well, it's no less an overt attempt by the left to undermine our moral foundation as a nation, in my opinion. How many times have you heard of a school system being sued by the ACLU or the Freedom From Religion Foundation for having a Christmas party or a nativity scene or singing Christmas carols or anything like that? Of course, they claim that such school activities violate the Establishment Clause of the First Amendment. Well, is that true? Again, some history. Let me ask the question. Anybody know when Christmas was established as a national holiday in the United States? It was actually in 1870 by President Grant. There's a little bit of history behind that. I won't go into the long history of Christmas celebrations before that period, but really the main point of Christmas being a national holiday at that point was reconciliation between the North and the South. Because in general, at that time, a lot of people in the South celebrated Christmas. A lot of people in the North didn't. President Grant thought that, well, if we have a holiday like this that celebrates the Redeemer, it would help healing between the North and the South. But it was established not as any generic holiday, but specifically as Christmas. Okay. Well, for the next 100 years, there were no calls claiming that Christmas in schools violated the First Amendment. Imagine that. So what's changed in the Constitution that suddenly it does? Well, of course, nothing has changed in the Constitution. What has changed is a series of Supreme Court decisions that have reversed the clear intent and the meaning of the First Amendment concerning religion, freedom of religion. And when you look at courts overturning what has been accepted for hundreds of years with no change in the law, no change in the Constitution, we need to look at those rulings with much suspicion. The 1947 case of Everson versus Board of Education really started it all. In that case, the court proclaimed that the First Amendment has erected a wall of separation between church and state. That wall must be kept high and impregnable, and we could not approve the slightest breach. Well, since then, there have been many other court decisions that have gradually continued to erode our founding principles based on Christianity. Concerning Christmas, we've had courts make absurd rulings like, well, it's okay to sing Christmas carols in school, but you must sing as many or more secular songs at the same time. Or, you can have a manger scene in school, but you can't have the baby Jesus, or angels, or the three wise men. And on it goes, just absurd rulings like that. And most of those are from lower courts, not from the Supreme Court. But again, it's slowly eroding our freedom of religion. Now, I've discussed the First Amendment before. Don't have time to get into all the details about it, but suffice it to say that our religious freedoms have been abused by these unconstitutional rulings. The courts have changed the true meaning of the First Amendment. The First Amendment says, if you recall, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of a religion or preventing the free exercise thereof. Well, the courts have flipped that on its head, and now, when it says Congress, what the courts mean is it means, well, really any student or teacher or a soldier or a citizen or a school community, whatever, you can't do that, okay? Not just Congress, no one can do it. When it says make no law, they mean, really, you can't express your faith in a public arena. It's not making a law, you just can't express your faith, period. When they talk about establishing a religion, really what they mean is they don't allow religion anymore. And certainly there is no longer any free exercise thereof. The courts have, in effect, established secular humanism as our national religion. Now, again, the clear intent of the Establishment Clause was to prevent the federal government from setting up a national religion similar to the Church of England, period. That's the whole issue. It was never intended to abolish Christianity from the public square. Now, the founders did acknowledge that there was distinct roles between the church and the state, and that they should not be blended. However, they also acknowledged that both institutions were created by God and ordained by God, and God was still above them both. I'll quote Joseph Story again. He's one of my favorite guys to quote on his commentaries on the Constitution. He said, when concerning the First Amendment, he said, "We are not to attribute this prohibition of a national religious establishment to an indifference to religion in general, and especially to Christianity, which none could hold in more reverence than the framers of the Constitution. Probably at the time of the adoption of the Constitution and the amendment to it now under consideration, the general, if not the universal sentiment in America was that Christianity ought to receive encouragement from the state. An attempt to level all religions and to make it a matter of state policy to hold all in utter indifference would have created universal disapprobation, if not universal indignation. The real object of the First Amendment was not to countenance, much less advance, Mohammedanism, or Judaism, or infidelity by prostrating Christianity, but to exclude all rivalry among Christian sects." Now, the founders did not consider prayer or references to God or teaching the Bible or invoking Scripture as part of an argument for or against the law or any of those things as establishment of religion. Just think of all the traditional trappings in Washington, D.C., such as chaplains of the Senate and all the prayer that goes on and all the religious symbols all around, and you know that these court interpretations are just wrong. But let's look at the real intent behind all the complaints about Christmas in general, or specifically. If the left has to acknowledge that Christmas is indeed the holiday we're celebrating, then they have to acknowledge what Christmas means. Christmas is a celebration of the incarnation of God into this world. Jesus, the God-man, the one the Bible describes as fully God and fully man. If they acknowledge that, they have to acknowledge Jesus' purpose as Redeemer, to be the ransom for many before a holy God who must punish sin. If they have to acknowledge that, they must acknowledge their own sin and guilt against that holy God and His commandments. That they refuse to do. So, did our founders acknowledge these truths? Well, let's look at the Declaration. They acknowledge the Creator who gave us all our unalienable rights. And they, at the end of the document, they put their trust with the words that say, with a firm reliance on the protection of divine providence. In the Constitution, there's much evidence that they got most of their ideas from Scripture. Also, they publicly acknowledged God in the last article when they stated, done in convention by the unanimous consent of the states present, the 17th day of September, in the year of our Lord, 1787. Even our dating system acknowledges the most significant event of all of history, the birth of Christ. And that was not just a formality for them. Many documents of that era were signed in the year of the Lord, 1787, or just in the year 1787. So the founders were intentionally paying tribute to the King of Kings. Consider that Jefferson, whom the left points to as their proof for all their wrong interpretations of the First Amendment, well, he and other presidents like Washington signed many of their official documents as president in the year, not in the year of our Lord, but in the year of our Lord Christ. So, we should not let the left intimidate us into saying anything else but Merry Christmas to all.
Thank you.
Any questions? Questions?
I have a question. Thank you, Ray. So doesn't the First Amendment say that Congress shall make no laws?
That's exactly what it
So
says.
it's very specifically directed at a specific branch of federal government only
Exactly.
when it comes to religion, right?
Exactly.
And so that's been extrapolated into, I can't say Merry Christmas if I work for the government, in Lenore City, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it takes a lot longer time to explain all of it,
Right,
but
right.
they twist the 14th Amendment into applying that to the states now, which even if you did, it would mean the state governments could not establish a religion, but not meaning that you can't exercise your own religion by praying or saying Christmas or whatever, wherever you are. So, good question. All right, let's get rolling here. We do have two guest speakers tonight. I want to introduce the first one. He is our new state representative from Loudoun County area, Lowell Russell, and we are glad to hear you. And we have Paul, his chief of staff, or whatever you want.
I'm the secretary. Let's go to
There he is. Paul was with us several months ago when Lowell was sick and couldn't make it to one of our Tea Party meetings, and so Paul campaigned for him. But we have Lowell. He's going to speak to us for a little bit, and then we'll have time to ask him some questions.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here and to be a part of the County Patriots meeting tonight. And I will tell you this, when I first came to your first meeting, after I started running, I would have never have thought I'd become so good friends with many of y'all, and I cherish the time I spent with a lot of y'all. I truly believe that people are put in our lives for a reason, and that's why I've been here, and I appreciate that. I don't know if many of y'all know my story. I grew up in Vonore, graduated Vonore High School, later went to college to get a degree in criminal justice. I had worked at the Monroe County Sheriff's Office, went on to the Highway Patrol, worked there as a road trooper until 2007, got promoted to sergeant in internal affairs and worked in that job for 4 years. And that was one of the hardest jobs. I had to investigate other officers, and whenever you do that, that's a tough job. But I'll tell you this, 99% of them are good officers, and it just takes that one that messes it up for the whole crew. But we have got some good police officers and troopers across the state of Tennessee. And then I got transferred home in 2011. I really wanted to come home, and got to spend a year at home working the road, and unfortunately got run over by a tractor trailer when a driver fallen asleep here on the shoulder of the road to hit my patrol car. So it gave me some life-threatening injuries, and the only thing I suffer from now, I have some neck movement problems where I'm fused in my skull to C4, and I was unable to go back to work doing state trooper work for that reason. The only other issues I got is my left side of my vocal cords are still partially paralyzed, so every now and then I have a problem pronunciating my words. So if I slur, I promise I've not been drinking. I Sweet tea is about it, I promise I get. Anyway, so after my wreck, I started looking for other ways to serve my community. I didn't want to sit at home on disability. I wanted to try to go back to work, and so I started, after Jimmy Matlock said he wasn't going to run for legislator anymore, I thought, well, you know, that might be a good opportunity for me to serve my community in a different capacity. So I went around the district and I started asking people, I was like, hey, what do you want out of a state representative? And I covered the district. I covered all the way to Monroe County, all the way to Lowell, Lenore City, 10 Mile, Corn Tassel, all those places. And so I started asking people what they wanted, and I thought that I could serve in that role. And whenever turned the petition in, I really didn't know how it was going to go. Paul was my campaign manager, and I owe a lot to Paul. He got out there every day knocking on doors, and we got our message out. I had a really good team, run against two really good guys in the primary, and then won the primary and then won the general election. So I am honored to be the state representative here, and I promise you I'm going to work hard for each and every one of you. Now, whenever I ran on three things: public safety, the economy, and small government. Those are things I really want to focus on, I'm passionate about, and I'm going to work hard to get done. And so far, we went to Nashville a couple times, just orientation, got to see my office, meet my assistant, and everything is just happening so fast. We'll get our permanent assignment as far as the office space. They said around the 10th of January, that's not set in stone, somewhere the 8th to the 10th. Our committee assignments will be around the 10th, and then we'll actually get cards made. I don't have any cards to give you because I'm a new guy on the block, so hopefully in January I'll have a bunch of cards on noon. On January the 8th, I get sworn in. If y'all are around, I'd invite you down to the Capitol soon to get sworn in. It'd be an honor. You get a chance to come by my office anytime. I'd like to talk with you, see what the concerns are, and work hard for you. But if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer them.
Hi, I'm Fred Timmons. Congratulations and welcome to the meeting. So I have a question about high-risk protective orders, or so-called red flag laws, where neighbor can call police against neighbor, family against family, co-worker against co-worker, and have SWAT come and take their weapon. So I just want to know if y'all in Nashville support such a scheme. It's happening in Florida, California, several other states. The president has expressed support for it. Democrats and Republicans have expressed support for it. It's what the Soviets did and the Nazis to a lesser extent, was they turned everybody against everybody and had everybody call the police. So I'm gonna ask our federal representative the same question if I get the opportunity to. I'd be interested in your thoughts, and if there's something we can do to stop this before it gets out of control. Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you what I support. I support the Second Amendment rights. And I'm going to work hard to protect our Second Amendment rights. And I do support our police. So, I mean, I support them going out there, taking a report, and having a report available for whoever needs it. And then that person can take it to the courthouse and get an order of protection or whatever they need to protect themselves. But as far as coming and taking somebody's guns away, I don't support that. I support the Second Amendment.
Hello, thank you so much for your service. And I'm so glad we're sending you to Nashville.
It's an honor.
It's a little bit swampy, but never mind. I wanted to know, are they still pushing for in-state tuition for illegal aliens?
You know, I don't know if it's going to come up or not. I know it has in the past, but I don't know where it stands right now. And you know, the 111th Assembly, we've got a lot of stuff coming out, but I've not heard anything particularly on that yet. But if you'll call me right when the session starts, I'll make a note of it, and if it does come up, I'll probably let you know.
Hello, and congratulations.
Thank you.
I'm more in line of the public's right to know and also for the public to speak. We learned not too long ago at a county commission meeting that the public does not have a right to speak in a public meeting. And I'm wondering if you would consider a bill that allows the public to speak at public meetings. I mean, it's something that the politicians will present as something that you can do, but in reality, there's no law that says that we have to speak at public meetings. So I was wondering if you would consider having a bill that says the public can speak at public meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I would consider it. I thought that you all had, I thought everybody had a right to speak at public meetings, but yeah, I would consider that. In fact, I thought that everyone I've been to, I've seen like 5 minutes granted to different people. But
It's just a courtesy.
yeah, I will look at that.
Anybody else?
Yes.
The library in Putnam County, Tennessee, and one up at Clarksville had a drag queen story hour. Now that is a taxpayer funded. What can we do to not pay for that perversion and deceit for the little ones?
Contact every state representative and state senator you can, and let them know you're against it. I will say this, I'm just one vote, and it takes more than me, but I would support contacting every one of us.
Now that you're in office, are you going to still come back and visit and come to our meetings?
Absolutely. I tell people all the time I'm from a little place called Corntassel, Tennessee, which is right outside of Baltimore, and I don't think they can ever keep me out of Corntassel, and I'll be here at your meetings and as much as I can.
As long as you're a deputy, does Loudoun County have classes on an active shooter in a building? And if they, excuse me, if they do have them, can you give me the person's name that I would contact or who I would contact? Our church would like to have a class.
Yeah, and they do things for churches like that. They changed the name to active killers, and instead of active shooters, but active killers is what they call it. But if you'll give me your name and number, I'll get with the sheriff and get you in contact with him.
Okay. I'll see you after the meeting.
Great.
Yeah, thanks again. So one more question. Do you support constitutional carry or permitless carry? So I mean, I just renewed my permit. It cost me, it cost me $8 a year now. So basically, I mean, isn't that practically revenue neutral? I know there's a lot of us, but I mean, it's not like a whole bunch of money. So I would still want to keep my permit because there's reciprocity with other states. So most of us will keep going through the permitting system. So the revenue won't drop off 100%, but, I mean, doesn't a man have a right to defend himself or not without permission of the state? And, I mean, we tried to get them out of committee. We couldn't get the bills out of committee, out of the Judiciary Committee for years and years and years because Mrs. Harwell wouldn't allow them to the floor. So just let's be blunt about that. So, I love your opinion on that. If there's something you can do, I know you're a junior and you're newly arriving, but it's been something we've been trying to get in Tennessee for years now. Thank you.
Like I said, I'm a big supporter of the Second Amendment rights, and it's either Vermont or Illinois that's had constitutional carry since 1776, Vermont. And it's really worked out good up there. And the only problem that I see that would have to be figured out would be you've got to figure out how the people that, and they may have already had this in Vermont, is how the people that have had their rights taken away are identified, like if they're violent, and that would be the only issue.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate that. Thank you all. And I just want to say again, it is an honor to be here, and I truly am aware that each one of y'all are passionate about your causes, and you're setting a good example for others by getting your message out. And I truly believe by working together, we can get stuff done to make a difference in Tennessee. And I'll leave you with this. Merry Christmas. Okay, our next guest is Jim Burchett. I think everybody knows him. We're going to be our next Congressman from District 2, and we're real happy to have you. Hey, come on up.
Thank you. You're going to ask me a question about Second Amendment. My wife said, "You have your gun on you?" And I said, "I hope I do. If I don't, it fell out in the parking lot." My name's Tim Burchett, and I'm going to be your congressman, and I appreciate it. And I know there's some people in here who didn't vote for me, but you know, it is Christmas time. It's time for us to all come together as a party, and there's a lot of work to be done with the House turning over to the Democrats. It's kind of interesting. You know, Ms. Pelosi, she's cutting all these deals with everybody, and really all she's doing, in my opinion, is just doing that to stay in power. I don't know that she believes what she's supporting, other than she believes she can keep herself in power, and she knows most of that stuff will die on the Senate side anyway. There's been a lot of talk here lately of a few of the other members on the other side of the aisle and their philosophies, and that's the gift that keeps on giving, folks. Just let them get out there and talk. But you know, it won't be a Republican that takes them out politically. It'll be their own party, because they're getting too much press. We all know that, and that's what will, in my opinion, will end up happening to some of them. I just was fortunate enough to be picked as one of 6 of the new members. I believe there's 85, 86, something like that, to go on a trip to Israel. And it wasn't a vacation, it was 6 days. You know, it was 20 hours to get there, a little over 22, I think, to get back. And then you had 4 days on the ground, and it was intense. We were in meetings. We met with Benjamin Netanyahu for over an hour. Literally, I sit there, 6 of us, and I walked in and I looked at our name tags, and I'm sitting directly across from him. And he reminds me a lot of our president, really. It's, I don't know if it's the ego or the confidence. When he walks in the room, you know who he is, and he lets you know. I mean, he's the real deal. He's an intense individual. And, you know, we went to Gaza, and then we went to the border of Syria, which is, it's hard to imagine. I took a picture of it, and I tweeted about it. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I'd encourage you to do it. It's probably the best Twitter account in America today. I took a picture of it outside of our little Range Rover Defender, and I told my wife, she goes, "Well, at least you got to ride in a Range Rover." And it wasn't like an American Range Rover, and those seats were like riding on a cinder block covered in vinyl, and it was an old diesel and had a cracked windshield. And my head was just on a swivel, because you look off to the side and it said, you know, landmines off to the side. Then you drive along a little bit, and there's a car that's just been blown to pieces, and you wonder what happened to it. And you pull up to the border, and there's this gate, and it looks pretty much like you look off to the left, there's tank traps and things like that. And I tweeted, I said, it really didn't look the border of Syria didn't look as good as it did in the brochures. It was cold, and we go visit a hospital that the Soviets had built for the Syrians, and it was obviously on our side, or the Israeli side, and they had taken it in some battle. It's just, you know, everybody thinks they're going to go in there and we're going to legislate, or we're going to send some interpreters or somebody over there. And, you know, I believe Iraq has, I believe they told me at one time, had over 70 different tribes. And to think that they don't like each other and they don't like us. Right. So I'm not sure that one of our diplomats or some of those United Nations troops, those really nice little baby blue berets, are going to have a lot to do. Interestingly enough, I'm not a big fan of the UN. I'd say let's pull out. It's a waste of our day. For instance, it was kind of interesting. We were going up the border, and I always try to break off. I try to get with the locals. You know, if I was in Blount County, I'd hang out with Ed Mitchell. I wouldn't hang out with some UT professor, you know, telling me the history of Blount County, you know. I said, "Ed, tell me what's going on." Well, you know, that happened, you know. And so this guy was this Israeli, and he got banged up. Eventually, he told me he got hurt in a little incident. Well, it was little incidents. And he was telling the UN, he said, you see that? He's like, Tim, you see where the road goes through the mountain right there? And I said, yeah. And he said, well, ISIS attacked he gave me 2 different instances where our UN failed us. And this one instance was, well, they had to get rid of a bunch of them because they were selling drugs, one group. Then the other group, I believe they were a group from Fiji Island. Now, you talk about drawing the short stick, go from Fiji Island to dadgum Libya, or not Libya, excuse me, Syria. And they got under fire, and I believe he said that their commander, they called back their commander in Fiji Islands, and he said, attack, 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 you know. And so, and then the UN commander called him and said, no, surrender. I mean, you know, so you got to, it's just a no-win situation. And the other time, they got attacked by ISIS, and guess who had to go rescue them? The Israelis had to go rescue them. So it's, and it was over 70 men that they had to bring out of there. So it's just it's a nightmare of mass proportions. And I really get sick and tired of hearing people say, oh, it's just as safe as being in Knoxville. And I said, it's not, unless Blount County has 700 missiles pointed at you. That's how literally, that's how many we have. And it was interesting, Netanyahu was telling us that I don't believe this is classified information, because if it is, I'll just tell it to you. It won't be classified anymore. But he said that, you know, during one of the battles or wars, they shot several hundred missiles at him. He goes, and Tim, he says, would they leave within 1 second, we'd know where they're going to land. And he said, if they go, I kept thinking, I close my eyes and I think this is Arnold Schwarzenegger. And he said, if they're going to land in a field, we let them land in the field, you know, blow up. And he said, if they're going to land on a warehouse or a people, we take them out in 2 seconds. You know, I mean, they can literally, that technology. And my wife commented to me, she said, God, baby, we ought to have that for America. You know, and I got to thinking, I said, well, that young, we designed, that's our stuff that we gave you. And interestingly enough, we went to the tunnels. I'm looking off because I can see them in my mind. I mean, I can smell it and feel it, and just talking to everybody. And oddly enough, I thought about my daddy, because Daddy was in the Second World War, and he was a demolitions man, a demolition engineer, which basically, I think if the enemy was breathing, they threw in a bigger charge. Basically, you know, they'd fight. It's just like you see in the movies, they'd fight up to this little hole, and his buddy Red would throw in 10 pounds of TNT or 20 pounds, and Dad had the Thompson submachine gun on in case somebody shot him. And you know, they blow those caves. And these caves, though, the one we toured, they figured would cost around $10 million. So they're saying, we don't have the money for hospitals, we don't have the money for schools, but they're spending. And you go in these caves, and it's very sandy. It's easy to dig, but it's easy to cave in on you too. So I guess the Palestinians or whoever, they bring in these concrete tubes and these sections, and they're basically a prefab tunnel. I guess terrorism's a cottage industry over there. I'm not sure, but to remove any doubt of who built these caves, there's right markings, and you can tell. I mean, if you see them on a TV show or something, you know that they're not Hebrew and they're not English. And they literally, the company that manufactured these things is stamped on the inside of these dadgum tunnels. And Ed, you'd have a hard time. Me and you had back of my head was just about knocked off from going in that, because if you follow there's a YouTube video of this young terrorist who was going through the tunnel, and he leans over and he sees something, and he realizes that what it is, it's a camera, and it's got like an M80 or a cherry bomb on it. And you see the kid just turn around and take off, and everything blows up. And I asked the Prime Minister about that video. Thank you, Mike. And he said that, he goes, yeah, if we wanted to take him out, we could have. We just wanted to scare him a little bit. And you guys, if you get one of your kids or grandkids to show you that video, but it's my kid. I gotta get Isabel to show me, so I know Ed Mitchell doesn't pull up it on his computer. was intense too, as a Christian, literally to walk that Jesus actually walked. I mean, you gotta, it's just hard to imagine. It's almost surreal. And we walked down this one path. We went down a tunnel, and they dug down and found this literally this road that they built, and it probably wasn't as wide, maybe just a little wider than this table, and the guy read the scripture, and it led down to where a fountain or something was that Jesus healed this guy's sight who was blind, and they found it was Herod had built it, and this was the era of Herod, and it was just it was unbelievable. It was just I mean, I just sat there, and they were pretty good guys that our folks were, and while we were over there, actually 14 Israelis were killed by terrorists. One poor woman was pregnant, and they shot her, and as they say, the enemy was liquidated. Though they found out pretty quick who did it, and they don't mess around. We also met with everybody. We got to get both sides over there, Burchett. You're just listening to those Jewish folks. And I said, well, we did. We went and met with the PLO. Now they're called the PA. It's very unsettling to me to walk into an office and see a picture of Yasser Arafat on the wall. It's just it's a different world. And this one big guy, he was every bit of 6'5" or 6'6". And I walked in, and he gave me this look, and I thought, well, what did I do? And then I realized I had my Israel USA pin on my lapel. And no, I did not take it off. I don't care. I thought if I'm going to take a whipping, I'll take a whipping. But and I have a picture too. I'll post it later on my Twitter account. And it was facial identification. I said, is that thing taking a picture of me? Oh, no, it's not taking a picture of you. I look over and I took a picture of it, taking a picture of it. My pointed head was right on it. And, you know, it's just a different world over there. It is a different world. You see, it's dirty. Man, it is dirty. It's just, something the UN could do over there is drill wells. You know, there's a lot of fights over water and things like that. And thank goodness the Israelis have now, they have gas. They hit natural gas, or they can liquefy. They're actually, and Netanyahu told us that they're actually an exporter and they don't have to import. So that's a good thing. That keeps them a little more efficient. And of course, we're all worried about the tax dollars. And we'll get into that later, because I don't have any idea how much money we're sending them. But I read the scripture, and the way I understand it is, if you know, the Lord was talking about you bless His people, He'll bless you, and I think that is probably one of the issues that keeps us. The reason God doesn't just wipe us off with that young man, and I believe that. I have friends that are Muslims and Middle Easterners, and they're mad at me for going on this trip, but yeah, it's. You can't look at it in the National Geographic and draw a conclusion. You really have to go see it, and it is it's a different world. And the most interesting guy was not most interesting, but one of the funner guys was our last trip. We walk in, we were supposed to meet the ambassador. Of course, you go in and there's people with the earpieces in, and there's little 18, 17-year-old girls carrying automatic weapons around there in the military. It's mandatory service, 2 years. For the girls and 3 years for the boys. And I did notice that we picked up an extra security man towards the end of the week, so I suspect that had something to do with what was going on. And I mean, one of our guys, he was just like a guy out of a James Bond movie, out of Central Casting. He was an older Israeli. I get up kind of early. I didn't sleep. The best I slept was when I on the plane ride out of there. But he was. You know, he had the earpiece in, and he'd smoke a cigarette. He's older and had kind of a gruff voice. And we had breakfast one morning. He's an Israeli. And oddly enough, Israelis, a lot of them are atheists. It's more of a love of the land and not of the Lord. And it's just a very diverse culture and thing going on over there. But this guy, he said, you know, I was a paratrooper. I thought I'd do that forever, and I just kind of got bored with it. And then I got into hostage negotiation. if you know anything about hostage negotiation over there. It's like, let them go, we're going to put a bullet in your head. You know, and that's about the negotiating skills. And they're very successful at that. And this guy said, you know, Tim, he says, honestly, I just kind of got bored with it. And I thought, wow, he must be one heck of an adrenaline junkie. And we were pretty close, and they were very kind people. And I was very, I physically was almost upset when I got there, just the emotion of where I was historically. And then I was sitting across from Netanyahu, and I couldn't help but think of a couple of people in this room that helped me. Where'd he go? Did he run off? Here I'm saying, oh, he's standing up. All right, he just wants to get out early, I guess. But I thought of some people that had helped me get to where I was. I mean, I'm just a kid from West Hills and West Knoxville, and I'm sitting across the street from Benjamin Netanyahu. That did not escape me. I also gave him a shirt that said "Go Vols" in Hebrew. I gave him a fist bump. Of course I did. The ambassador to Israel. Oh man, I loved him. He was the president's attorney in like real estate dealings, and he's a Jewish fellow from New York. He's an attorney, and he was great. We walked in there, and he says, I turned to our guys that were friends, our Israeli friends, and I said, where's the ambassador? And I go, that's him. And he was, he was cool, and he was telling me something, and I said, did anybody see Saturday Night Live where Dan Crenshaw, the guy with the eye patch? Well, he was on the trip with us. They made fun of him, and then he went up there and was real kind to him, and showed some class, I thought. And I cut on him the whole trip. It was me and him. We just back and forth like I don't know what. And I was sitting there with the ambassador, and I said, "What kind of pool?" I said, he goes, "Well, Tim, it says it's my one frivolity. I keep it heated year round." And I'm thinking, I don't care. I'm glad you're over here, dude. But it was on the Mediterranean, which was extra sweet. And if you can imagine, you just walk out, you got a pool, and then you got the ocean out there. Forget the pool, I'd be at the ocean. But he said, and I said, "Is it salt water?" And he goes, "Yes, we converted it over to salt water." And I said, "Yeah, our pool's salt water too." I said, "Dan Crenshaw says it makes my skin a whole lot softer." But anyway, it was, and he says, "Yeah, Tim," he goes, my father was a very strict rabbi, and here I have a Christmas tree. It looked like freaking Charlie Brown's Christmas tree over there. I was like, that's the worst. Ambassador honestly, that's the worst dadgum Christmas tree I've ever seen. And I wouldn't brag on it too much, and he was just great. And so, anyway, makes me very proud to be in our country. And I want to say too, I appreciate all of our veterans in here. I know there's several in here, and what we had wasn't given to us, and the Lord gave it to us, and we've done a pretty good job of wrecking it. And our veterans have kept us free, and I wouldn't trade a terrible day in this country for a good day overseas. And I was elected to Congress, and I'll talk about that a little bit. Our budget situation, that's the one thing, one of the problems I have with the president and our Congress. Got to start paying down the dadgum debt. We did that as the mayor. I did that, and nobody liked it. It didn't get me reelected, but our bond rating went through the roof, and nobody in this country was doing that at that time. And that's the kind of just common sense approach we've got to take. They cut taxes, which is great, and then by cutting taxes, you have more tax revenue, because what do you good folks do? You don't go take that money and stick it under your pillow, under your mattress. You put it out on the street, basically. You put it in the bank, they loan it out, people buy more houses. People invest in business, they pay their employees more, they buy more. It just works that way. But on the other end, you've got to pay down the debt. You've got to quit the ever-encroaching growth of government. And that is something that people have got to start pointing out, and we've got to start taking a stand. If it's against the president, I don't care who it is, because it will wreck us, sure as the world. I fear the debt more than I do the Chinese. And that's a pretty big fear. Yeah. Anyway, and as far as where I'm going to be, honestly, there's 435 of them. I'm number 436. Michael, I was just I'm glad that we got us an office, you know, with a view. I think our view, it looks like the courtyard. It's like you get to view the courtyard, but it reminds me of the scene in Shawshank Redemption where you look out over the yard, you know, where all the convicts are. It ain't all that plush. But anyway, it's I picked number 15, which was pretty sweet, and we got our second choice, I believe, for offices. So it's on the Longworth building. It's 1122, which my daughter, I believe she told me that. She said, "Gee, Dad, you just take the first two numbers and double them, and you get the second two numbers." And I go, "Well, that's a great way I'll remember it." And I haven't forgotten it since then. So my brain trust. I mean, I brought my beautiful bride Kelly with me, and they've been with me through this campaign. And my daughter Isabel, who I brag on all the time, she can I tell them what you're qualifying? All right, yeah, I can. She qualified for the World Youth, what is it called, Mama? Youth World Championship in barrel racing. So she, I don't know if y'all saw it on ESPN 12, but she won. How much money did you win? $87. What was that check for? $54. Who says that horseback riding isn't a hobby that pays for itself?
One day in horse teeth.
Yeah. Anyway, but it's been an honor. It's been an honor getting to know y'all, and I hope it's a very long-standing relationship. I hope we can keep that up. And I'm going to keep all the same phone numbers we're trying to that Congressman Duncan had, because I just, you know, some of those people change their numbers over ego. I think that's stupid. You know, you got a long-standing relationship with constituent service, and that's what I'll be focusing on. There's one piece of legislation I would like to file. I would like just to call, just to see what happens with it. Let's cut off money to any country that is involved in human trafficking.
Yeah.
Strike a nerve, that's going to hit our friends south of the border. And do I think it'll get out of committee? Probably not, but I sure would like to see somebody vote on it. Could you imagine if the president called a press conference, or and went on and said, "I'm going to propose this legislation"? Who would oppose that? Who would oppose that? And they would, but I'd like to call them out just to show the ridiculous nature of what's going on up there right now. And there will be some other things. The trouble with a lot of laws you pass, though, is enforcement. People pass these crazy laws, and there's nobody in there to enforce them, or they don't put the money into enforcement, and you have to be careful about. I passed some of the toughest laws in the country on child molesters, locking them up, but you've got to be able to get the money in the budget to pay for it, because it has what's called a fiscal note, and they don't pay much attention in Washington, but they sure do in Nashville, and they should. But anyway, why don't I stop there? I've rambled too much and I talked about what I intended to talk about. I just talked about Israel the whole time, but it made a life-changing impact on me. So anyway, I'll answer some questions.
Okay. Well,
and there's some questions that back here and honestly, my man here, I spent 16 years in the legislature, and he did a very good job at answering those. But some of those questions I might be able to answer if you want to. Go ahead.
Thank you, sir. I would remind, and congratulations, thanks for.
And there's no way in the world I support gun seizure.
Okay. That's my question.
And in Tennessee, the gun seizure laws are basically domestic violence. They can get them for
but there has to be evidence of a crime before the weapons can be seized. Right. So that's all I want.
Yes,
Evidence of a crime.
And they started doing that in Louisiana during whichever that Hurricane Katrina.
Right.
They went into people's lists of who had the guns, and they went and took them by boat because, and you got the thugs out there. That's what bothers me about D.C. To carry a gun up there, it's like pulling teeth, and apparently if you have a shotgun in your own domicile or house, you have to sign up. There's all kinds of paperwork and everything. It's ridiculous. A lot of people carry a gun up there at the Capitol Police and the criminals.
Right.
And you hope there's more Capitol Police than criminals.
Okay, thank you, sir, for answering.
Yes, and it's not sir, it's just Tim. Thank you, brother. Thank you for your question.
I'll start out with my question. Since you brought up the Middle East, just a little background on me. I spent 20 years in the Air Force as a pilot. My son is currently in Afghanistan again. for the third time. And in my opinion, whether we leave tomorrow or 20 years from now, it's all going to evolve back to the same thing. So I know Congressman Duncan was very outspoken against it. What are your...
Well, I'd go one step further. I think what we better do, and I've talked about this, is develop these alternative energy sources. Because the reality is, if we devalue their oil, then they become it becomes very tribal. Those 70+ tribes that exist in Iraq would be the new controlling things, and basically it'd be hard to drive a sheep or a goat or a camel into the side of a building in New York City and blow it up. They won't have the money, is what I'm saying. We devalue their oil, we make it worthless, and we keep developing the new stuff here, and energy source like coal. We have over 500 years worth of coal in the ground. Let's take some of those billions of dollars overseas and invest it right here in this community. Could you imagine what $1 billion, somebody drop $1 billion extra dollars on Oak Ridge National Laboratory and say, find us some new energy sources, these rare earth minerals that are like Buck Rogers kind of talk, but that we could develop coal gasification. There's processes now where they can literally take the garbage out of the ground, run a magnet over it, take the metals out of it, superheat it in a vacuum, basically distill it, pull a gas off of it, and liquefy that gas and turn it into a fuel. What's left is a harmless carbon that we can use as a soil beneficiary. And we can literally, like I said many times, one day we'll mine our landfills and we'll sell our sewage as a commodity. And we'll develop that technology. Let's develop that technology now. Let's not let the Chinese or anybody else develop that. And I propose that too to the ambassador to Israel, because you can do all that with sewage and all that stuff. And there's processes out there. We can do that now. And let's develop that technology, but let's do it right here in Oak Ridge, in this area. In Oak Ridge, I know it's not in the 2nd Congressional District, but there's 5,000 to 6,000 people that work there that do live in the 2nd Congressional District. So, and that would bring our boys and girls home. I'm sick and tired of the VA and the terrible treatment that they get, and it's just another bureaucracy. I don't like driving in Knoxville and looking under a bridge and seeing some young man with a limb blown off, with the tattoos. I know he's been in our military, and honestly, is that the best we can do? I mean, it's shame on us as a country for doing that. So we can keep gasoline down below $2 a gallon.
Yes.
So I'm sick of it, and I'll say it every time. I don't care who's in the room. I support our military. My father fought the Second World War, and my mom lost a brother. My parents are both buried at a veteran cemetery, and there's nobody, I'd say, in East Tennessee, outside of my buddy Ed Mitchell, that has a better record of supporting our veterans. And so, I'm sorry I went to preaching. We'll have a special love offering here. So,
You're not preaching at all. You did a great job, and thank you. Before we get started, I have a couple of questions for you, but just wanted to say that Mike Hammond, which you know very well, is the county criminal court clerk for Knox County.
Yes, sir.
Said the one thing that he was going to miss the most by not being here tonight was what you were going to say about Israel. And he missed out on a great presentation and outline from you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
One of the things that I wanted to mention, probably more not a question, but it's something you kind of touched on. You talked about cutting back on our budget and cutting expenditures, and which I'm happy to hear you say that, by the way. But one of the things that I see that we are doing so that we just gotten away from, and it's just recklessly spending so much overseas, especially with countries that hate us, want to kill us, where we can be spending that money over right here in this country on those that need it.
How about this, just not spending it?
Yeah, exactly. And what about shutting a lot of bases that aren't strategically beneficial to us? How do you feel about that?
I'd do that. The problem you got, of course, is everybody's gonna say, you know, the industrial war machine complex, I guess it's what Eisenhower called it. You know, this last budget, if you remember, they asked for amount of money, and it's the first time in the history they were awarded, it was 15% more than they asked for, something ridiculous. And then nobody called it out. Nobody said, hey, let's pull that money back. And I don't know what the drive was there, but yeah, we're in over 90 countries right now. I couldn't name 20 countries.
I know.
And it's ridiculous. And what is, and somebody's got to have the guts to say, military folks, they take an oath to uphold the Constitution. What's the constitutional duty of us being over in this country? What does it affect the Constitution of the United States of America to be in any of these countries in the Middle East? And somebody's going to have to define it. If we know they're active terrorists and they're planning on getting us, yeah, let's get them there. Let's get them at home. I don't want to get them at West Town Mall. But these countries that I'm tired of hearing about it.
They count on you to go up there and do it.
Yes.
How's that?
You got it.
And I'm, last question is how's your feelings on the entire immigration situation that we faced? How do you feel as far as Trump's position on our immigration?
I said build the wall yesterday, but and I also say, they're going to have to make some deal to get it. I don't know. They shut the government down. But that's going to be. We have got to get control of that. And you look at the drugs that are coming in, the things that we're not hearing about, the political correct crowd, and as far as these kids go, yeah, we don't have to separate families. The problem you've got is you don't know if they're families or if they're trafficking kids.
Right.
So somebody needs to say that, and I'll do it. Yes, sir.
We've got a lot of existential threats to this country, obviously, but one of the big ones is electromagnetic pulse.
Yes, sir.
There are 30 countries that have electromagnetic pulse weaponry. 24% of the states in the United States have hardened their grids. Not one of them, I'm sorry to say, is Tennessee. Even Russia and China have hardened their grids, so they're ready, they know what's happening. I would appreciate it if you could do everything you could to. There is a congressional EMP commission. It's been doing nothing for about 10 years.
You're talking to a guy who's got a bunch of motorcycles and a bunch of cars that would not be affected by that. We have a distributor, and it's not electronic ignition. It's a distributor and points. And you're talking to a guy.
Anything you can do.
So you're a road warrior.
Yeah, well, I'm a well-armed road warrior, I'll tell you that. That's a real deal, and I appreciate that. And I wish, I don't know what the avenue is, but I hope after the 3rd of January you get with me and I start pointing that out to some people. I really would, because that's a real threat. I think Newt Gingrich pointed that out in one of his books, I believe.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did.
You know as well as I do that if the Republican Party pays down on the debt, the next administration, no matter how long it might be, they will just bring it up. They will just raise it up again. They need a balanced budget to work within their means.
Yes, sir.
And not be borrowing money unless they can pay for it the next year, take it out of the next year, some way of working it out. I'm not claiming to know what to do. Second question, do you think it'll ever be possible for the citizens of the United States to take it in their own hands to get rid of the illegals that are in this country? That's a tough one.
Yeah, I don't think they'll allow it. I think it's going to get worse, and it's going to get worse, and we'll be like France, and I think they'll have to do something. But what amazes me is that somebody in the media, if I was on one of these TV shows, I would relish the opportunity to say, why don't y'all go back and look at some of these tapes of Schumer and Obama and even Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton just 10 years ago, what they were saying about building a wall. I mean, I've seen it, it's not, you see some of that stuff and it's kind of cut up and it's, but no, they're clearly saying we have a threat, we need to do something about it. And they said we need to build this wall, we need protection. And I think there's a group of people, you got the, Ms. Cortez, she's just an idealistic communist or socialist or whatever she is. And she's a nice lady. We talked and I laughed and I always asked her if she's plotting over for the country. And I told Donna Shalala, I looked at her and I said, Miss Shalala, I said, is it true that you and the Clintons family cut a deal with the devil to take over our country? She looked at me and she goes, we're going to get along just fine. But, there's a group of people idealistically believe it, and there's another group that doesn't really care what happens to the country as long as they stay in power. And that's what we're looking at, a lot of those people up there. And in our party too, some of those old guys that need to, they need to move on. And so, and we'll see that. I will make a prediction about the U.S. Senate race. I think that right now what's going on is some planned out positioning. I think you'll see maybe one candidate come out and you get a bunch of editorials saying, oh, he's the logical choice for Republicans, and it'll be like he was drafted. Or this particular candidate doesn't run, and he holds it out long enough to where they can get support for their other candidate that they had in mind all along. So let's just see what happens. But go ahead, yes ma'am, I'm sorry.
Yes, thank you. Is there any way that we could shrink this government back to Article 1, Section 8, then we wouldn't have a spending problem?
Yes, ma'am.
That's one thing. And then there is a bill floating around Congress at the moment, H.R. 193, American Restoration of Sovereignty Act, so it's already out there, so I'm glad that you can support that and get us the heck out of the UN.
Yes, ma'am. I would do that yesterday. That's a big waste of money. Yes, sir.
Just on that, what can we do about these education system teaching socialism?
Yeah, I got a big problem with that. I come from a family of public educators. What we got to do, in my opinion, is, you have these millionaires and billionaires that donate this money to these schools, and a lot of them they're fairly conservative. You just don't hear about them. They're not, but they're fairly conservative. They need to start. If I was donating money, I'd give every dollar to have a string attached to it. And UT pulls this 6 week stuff, and they start this crazy stuff they're doing all the time. And these positions they take, and these people they hire, somebody's got to have control. And the problem is they're not. They just write that check, they sit up in the skybox and watch the UT football game and go on about their business. And they're wrecking our country. And a lot of this it's anti, it's literally almost an anti-Semitic, anti-Christian move on some of our country.
It works until you run out of money.
Do what?
Socialism works until you run out of money.
Yeah, that's what Margaret Thatcher said. Yeah, it's a great thing until you run out of people to take money from. You're exactly right. Yes, sir.
Good evening, Mr. Burchett. Thank you for coming. I have a comment and a question. My comment is the gentleman that you're following, John Duncan, puts out I think it's monthly, 4-page newsletter that just covers the issues that are on his plate and what he's doing on them and what he thinks about certain key issues. I hope you'll continue that practice. It's very helpful, and to me, it gives me a feeling of being at least aware of what's going on. A lot of what I find in there never gets reported in the press, and we all know why that is.
Yes, sir.
That's my comment. My question is, I'm going to ask you to move to a little bit different field from all the things they've been asking you about. There's the ongoing discussions over global warming and what should be our response to the perceived threat of global warming. It's predicted 10 of the last 1 disasters is the way it seems to work. But I just wondered what your position is on the governmental corrections for global warming.
Well, I think they don't call it global warming anymore because they did. They're having a global warming summit and they had a blizzard. Yeah. What they call it? What is it? Climate change. I'm a Bigfoot guy and a Loch Ness Monster guy. When I was a kid, I just loved reading about that stuff. There used to be a show on television called In Search Of, and Leonard Nimoy was the host. And you can still find him on YouTube. I just thought how cool and high tech they were. You go walk back and watch those things, it is very low tech. I mean, it's like, it's nothing. Of course, I gotta be careful, Ed Mitchell's 2008 track tape player. in his 74 Vega. But there was one on there and it said, in search of, it was in, let's see, what year would that have been? That was in 1977. Right. Because I remember my mom had cancer and just gotten out of the hospital. And they cured her, and it was a bad, bad winter. But they said, in search of the Ice Age. And if you remember Time and Life, all the magazines had headlines, the coming Ice Age, the coming Ice Age. And now they've got the coming, you know, I believe God has made us stewards of our, we do need to. I want my little girl to be able to go play in those little creeks and streams and take her kids and go hunt crawdads with them like we did, and I don't want them to worry about, you know, I'm an organic gardener. I'm concerned about the environment, but I believe capitalism has a huge role in that. I always tell these kids when I speak to the schools about environmental issues, I say, you know, every community generates about 1 tire per person per year. So how many people are in Lowell? What are we looking at? 50,000? Okay, so you generate 50,000 tires a year, basically. And I said, if you can figure out what to do with those tires, you're going to be a millionaire. Yeah. And that turns those little wheels. And, you know, these electric cars, Tesla, for instance, I think they're it's out of Pelosi's district, Elon Musk. Every one of those tires, you ought to go up and just take 1/4 of that car away. Because that's, you paid for it. Your tax dollars paid for it. Those things are heavily subsidized. And of course, the stock went through the roof and made them billionaires, bigger billionaires. And I have a real hard problem with what they're doing because the rules they're putting on us, they're not putting on the Chinese. I don't make a habit of reading newspapers because, you know, if you want to know, you're trying to influence my opinion, I tell people, if you want to know my opinion, just ask my wife. She hasn't told it to me yet. So, I love you, baby. But, and there was an article, and it was talking about the Chinese, and it's just anti-Trump, anti-Trump, anti-Trump. Republicans are idiots, they're racists, they're against the, you know, they're misogynists, they're whatever, and yeah, everything. It's just ridiculous. So the editorial basically was just a pro-Chinese piece about how the things that they're doing. But if you read the article and look at the actual numbers, the Chinese are the greatest polluters. And these accords, the Paris Accords or whatever that Trump pulled us out of, which I think was a wise move, basically it just tied our hands. And to me, that would be written by foreign lobbyists. They tie the good old USA's hands, make us more of a debtor nation, indebted to these countries, and we got to get our energy, we got to get our supplies, we got to get our goods from them. And who would mostly benefit from that is the Chinese, because they don't care about their people. Their leadership is awful to their folks. They really are. And I don't know if I've answered the question, but I don't agree with any of that stuff. We had and Ed was very helpful on it. We were in what's called a non-attainment zone. East Tennessee was. And I called Lamar Alexander's office and I said, look, we can't do anything. We can't bring industry. And you remember that, Ed? I know. And so I called Big Jim Haslam. And I said, Mr. Haslam, I need your help. We got to get to Alexander. We got to get this thing straightened out. So we did a little research, and it turned out that one of these, what they're looking at is ppm, parts per million of pollutants in the air. Some of y'all understand that. So what we were looking at was one area where every area we were in attainment except for one area. And it turned out, as Ed pointed out, that was where they did the controlled burns in the Smoky Mountain, in the park. And that's where they were measuring, where they did the dadgum controlled burns. And we got this horrible situation. Well, I grew up in Knoxville. I can remember as a little boy, Mom and Daddy, we drive, no seat belts, and that old 64 VW Beagle, go to Church Street United Methodist every Sunday, and we drive by the Roman House. And then when they were making plexiglass, you had to roll the windows up because it would burn your throat and your eyes, literally. And, you know, if they would do that today, they'd shut the place down, and they should. Our environment is so much better, and it is better, and we're doing the right things, I feel like, but when those groups tie our hands, you're going to have to make some smoke somewhere. And when those groups tie our hands, this country, and yet they're doing it over there, there's no wall that's keeping the air the bad air they're creating, it goes up in the atmosphere and it just comes down over here. Somebody told me one time, if you want to solve pollution, just make a law that all smokestacks have to be 10 feet tall. You know, they make them, there's a reason they make them so high, because they go out of your atmosphere into somebody else's. So there's a lot of false science in that, and these people that are, a lot of these groups are getting funding to find the answers that they want them to find. And it's generally against the production of this country, and it weakens us further. Sorry.
No, that's good.
Sir?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
You started off saying that a lot of us didn't vote for you. Well, Jimmy was a member of our little group here, so I'll take it personal. If you do the right thing.
I don't take it personal.
You do the right thing, you'll get some votes. What I don't like is when I call up any politician's office, senator, representative, and I go, what is so-and-so's position on X? Oh, he hasn't taken a position yet. Bullshit. You know what you're going to vote for. Sorry, I'm sorry. That's a first. You know what you're going to vote for, you just don't want to tell us.
You'd be putting $1 in the swear jar, sir.
All right. So, are you going to, if you have a position, are you going to?
I'm going to let you know what my position is. If you know anything about my past, I don't really give a rip.
Okay.
You know, I'm just going to tell you what I think, and then we'll deal with it. But you got to realize too, there'll be thousands of bills, and you're going to call me about some obscure bill. I'm just saying somebody will, and they say, oh, you don't think, well, it's not going to go anywhere. And there's no reason to even put it in, you know, to take up any brain cells that I have left to research it when I can tell you it's got $1 billion fiscal note on it. It ain't even getting out of committee. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
What's your position on the Freedom Caucus?
Freedom Caucus, I'll probably vote more conservative than some of them, but I tell you, I don't like the fact that they can vote you. If they get an 80% approval, they can block vote you. I don't like the fact that you have to give them $10,000 to join. In leadership, all of the Freedom Caucus didn't even vote for the Freedom Caucus chairman to be our speaker. They didn't even get enough votes for that. So, you know, everybody better vote themselves, is what I'm saying, because that's what happened to a lot of these conservative groups, is they let the leadership dictate what was going on, and they drifted off. They got away from you know, because the Tea Party basically was give me liberty, give me death, get on my back, and they got into all these other issues, and they just, now, where are they now?
Right.
You know, and they're gone. This is one of the few that still survives. There's one, I think, up towards Sevierville. There was 95 counties, and at one time, correct me if I'm wrong, we had 98, is that right, Sue? I think we had 98 groups, Tea Party groups, in the state of Tennessee. And I would dare say there's a third of those are still in existence.
Last question.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I've got a recommended book for your reading and for everyone's reading. It's China RX by Gibson. It talks about how the entire pharmaceutical industry now resides in China. Do you know that if we had an anthrax attack on our troops, we don't make ciprofloxacin, I can't even say the word, ciprofloxacin in the United States, it's made in China.
Yes, sir.
Most of our drugs coming in, most of the aspirin, most of the vitamin C comes from China. The little manufacturing that's left in America has Chinese components that are bulk shipped in by the tons. The FDA does not inspect all this stuff. This is an example of regulatory capture by this industry, Big Pharma, and it's also an example of lack of attention by our elected people up in Washington.
I would suggest to you that they're paying attention. It's just some lobbyists just paying them to look elsewhere.
Well, and that's where I'm coming around to this. Can we have some people up in Washington who will turn off the special interest money coming in, walk away from it, declare it, and rely on us? We'll support you. You walk away from the special interest monies, and everybody here will stand up and get behind you on issues like this. But no politician in America ever comes to us and is ever willing to go and stand in front of the Congress and say, I'm not taking any more of it. Big Pharma rules the roost. And when the Chinese decide to cut off our medicines, we'll all be dead. And all these people we've elected up here will be dead along with us. That's an overstatement, but it's a very serious issue. Multiply this by every manufacturing job we've lost in the United States of America over the last 20 years.
That's one thing I
You're
like
right,
about
Bill.
Trump. He negotiates with those folks, and he's bringing a lot of that back over here. And all right. Well, I appreciate it. I look forward to this. And I'm getting sworn in on January 3rd.
I know Ray said no more questions, but this isn't a question. My husband and I have been involved with this organization since it started in 2009. We never were able to get your predecessor to be at any one of our meetings during all of those years. And I just really, really, really want to thank you for taking the time to be here. I'm only sorry that it's in December when a lot of our members are out of town or don't drive at night. So, but thank you very much.
No, ma'am, I'll be back. You'll be tired of hearing from me.
Okay.
I second
We're going to go ahead and close up. Just a couple things. Anybody that wants to put any donations in the hat, remember we don't charge dues, so if you want to, there's a little bucket over there. Act for America, there's no meeting in December, and we don't have a meeting in January, so our next meeting will be February 19th. So we are adjourned. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Ray.
Sorry about that.